All right, we're still going to do section 6.1, but we'll work a second day on it to add the other step. It's solving linear systems of equations by substitution, part 2 or day 2 technically. Take a look at this example. Go ahead and pause it and write it down. Okay, why we have a second day of this is if you look at these two equations, neither one of them have a variable that's isolated. This has a 3x and a y on this side of the equation. This has a negative 2x and a plus 4y on this side of the equation. It isn't set up nice. Let me go back to the 3 steps. Step 1, step 2, step 3. On the previous section, we got to start at step two because they gave us this already. It was done. This time it's not. We are going to have to set up one of the equations to get x or y alone. We have always gotten y alone because it was y equals mx plus b. You don't have to get y alone, and I'll show you where there's some advantages and disadvantage of getting y alone or x alone. So in this problem, when we say getting y alone or getting x alone, you are going to pick the variable that's almost already alone. This x has a 3 attached to it. This x has a negative 2 attached to it. This y has a 4 attached to it. And instead of saying attached to, yes, they're called coefficients. This has a coefficient, this has a coefficient, this has a coefficient. This y does not have a coefficient other than 1, which we don't have to write. So if you choose this equation to get the y by itself, then it's a lot easier to work with. All you have to do is one step, and I know you guys well enough that you want to take shortcuts and save yourself the time, and you also don't like fractions. So to save yourself from having any fractions in this equation and only doing one step, choose this y to try to get isolated. So go ahead and write this problem down. 3x plus y equals negative 7. I'm just rewriting it down here so that I have room to work. And you already know the drill of how to get y by itself. Minus 3x over to the other side. And you're left with y equals negative 3x minus 7. That's the step that used to be done for you. And now you have to do that yourself. And the first thing we did when we had 2 equal values is we put parentheses around that. Y is the same weight or the same size or the same value as negative 3x minus 7. So we are going to substitute that into the other equation. What's the other equation? It's negative 2x plus 4y equals 0. And that's where we started off in the previous example. So rewrite this equation down here as negative 2x plus 4. We're substituting and getting rid of this y and going with negative 3x minus 7 equals 0. This should look familiar, and this is what you're going to solve to get rid of this problem. And yep, I know, they take a while, but it's stuff you already know how to do, so it's nothing new as far as new information. 4 times negative 3x is negative 12x. 4 times negative 7 is negative 28 equals 0. Add your like terms. Where'd it go? Add your like terms. Negative 2 and negative 12 is negative 14x. Minus 28 equals 0. 2 more steps. Add 28 to both sides. You get negative 14x equals 28. And when you divide by negative 14, it's x equals negative 2. Oh, you can't even see that. I better scroll down. X equals negative 2. You found one part of the problem. You found x. You still need to find y. How did we find that before? By plugging this x, negative 2, into the parentheses. Always go find the parentheses that we had, which is right there. How do you find y then? Y equals negative 3 times negative 2 minus 7. I sure hope you're using a calculator on that rather than guessing with all those negatives. You do all this work, you might as well get the problem right. Y equals negative 1. Final answer, you have to write your x and your y in parentheses, -2 and -1. In order, x first, then y. Let's try another one. X minus y equals 3, x plus 2y equals -6. Write it down. Now you have your choice. This y has a coefficient of 2. Don't use it. This y has a coefficient of -1. Don't use it. This x doesn't have a coefficient, either does this x. So you can choose which problem do you want to solve. I'm going to do this one. You can do it with me, just because it was on the bottom. So your new equation is x equals -2y minus 6. It's not y equals mx plus b, but your x is isolated. There's your x. Put parentheses around these. Do the work. This -2y minus 6 is going right there, in for that x. Parentheses, -2y minus 6 minus y equals 3. If you would like to, you can put a 1 in front of your parentheses, and that will give you something to distribute. If you don't need to, which we really don't, but you just like the routine, you can put a 1 there and distribute. I'm not going to put a 1 there and distribute because you'll get the same answer. I'm just going to take -y and -2y is -3y. -3y minus 6 is 3. Finish it up by adding 6 to both sides. Plus 6 plus 6. You get -3y equals 9. And when you divide by -3 on both sides, you get y equals -3. This time you have y. How do you find x? Go find those parentheses. -3 goes in right there for y. X equals -2 times -3, subtract 6. Again, a lot of negatives. X equals 0. It's okay. X can be a 0 if it wants to be. It's just a number between 1 and -1, -1 and 1. Put your final answer in. Make sure the x goes first, then the y. All right, one last example. It looks like, go ahead, well, pause it. Go ahead and write this down. It looks like this y is the only y that doesn't have a coefficient. This has a -1. This has a -1. This has a +2. Let's get this y by itself, and I'm just going to squeeze it in right here. Plus x plus x. So I get y equals x minus 3. Parentheses around the x minus 3. Where am I going to substitute that? Right here. 2x. This is equal to the y, and if it's equal to the y, you have to put it in place of the y. But guess what's in front of that y? -1. There's a -1 in front of that y that needs to be there. It's different when you have a -1 compared to a +1, because when you do distribute a -1, it actually does change the problem. -x plus 3 equals 5. Combine like terms. If you have two x's and somebody takes one x away from you, you just have an x left. X plus 3 equals 5. And then when you minus 3 from both sides, -3 minus 3, you get x equals 2. Maybe if I move this down a little, you can see that. There you go. X equals 2. Where are you going to put that 2? Go find the parentheses. 2 goes in there. Y equals 2 minus 3, which means y is -1. 2 comma -1 is your final answer. Does it take a little bit longer adding that extra step? Yeah. You have one more step, adding x to both sides like that. And then here comes all this substitution. But it's good practice. It's good review of skills of semester 1 of algebra. And if you can do this, you can do a lot. All right, good luck with substitution.